From the Hilton Hotel here on Staten Island, you're watching a very special edition of In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello and very, very happy Memorial Day, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson. Usually you see me here with my dear friend Eric Rosen, but Eric took the holiday off so he can spend time with his family. But we do hope that he's going to join us next Monday night. As you could probably tell because of the setting and nature of tonight's show, we're not taking phone calls, but you can still see reruns of the show on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and also contact us on Instagram and Snapchat. Now, tonight is a very, very special night because the Staten Island community is hosting one of the Summer Olympic Games' all-time greatest athletes, Frank Shorter, a native New Yorker who was best known for winning the gold medal in long distance running back in 1972. So tonight, we are going to show you all of the festivities in honor of Mr. Shorter. We're also going to have a little chat with Frank and also talk about everything that's going on in long-distance running tonight. So stick around.
Okay, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. What resembles an American flag is behind me. I'd ask you to all rise. Place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, but good evening. I'm Jeff Benjamin. We want to welcome you here tonight to our get-together. Most of you know we have the great Frank Shorter with us, but what I'd like to do at this point is pass around the microphone. Please introduce yourselves in like a one-minute heart, 1 minute thing, okay? And I'm going to start here with this gentleman.
Tony Galata, it's my pleasure always to be here and with all my friends, and some of you I've known for 30, 40 years. And my new friend Frank, who, but the judge and coach and all the folks that I've run with over the years, I really appreciate it, and so it's good to be here. Kenny, and this is one of my old friends, Kenny.
Ken Christensen, former runner of Curtis High School.
Peter Mancuso, formerly of Staten Island. Keep getting pulled back here to my old native community because there's nothing like it.
I'm Ed Healy. I grew up in Ohio, and I ran with Frank when I just started running when I was 14, and I ended up setting the Staten Island record, 3 years later. But I pretended like I was Frank when I was just a boy, and it led to other things.
Craig Campbell. I'm the honoree of the roast on Monday night, even though I was a swimmer, not a runner. The only thing I run is from the couch to the refrigerator to get a cold beer. So thank you.
Well, the Campbell, just a fan.
I'm Chris, Joe Jones's son.
I'm Joe Jones's wife, and also I'm the Campbell's neighbor.
I'm Joe Jones. I was the recreator of the Staten Island AC back in 1966, and I ran for Curtis High School also.
And I'm Wayne Baker, and Vice President of Shore Athletic Club, running history buff. I'm the keeper of at least one of the more remarkable pieces of history, the 1908 Olympic marathon gold medal, which I brought with me tonight.
I'm Michael DeVito, and I get up every day to go to work for our community to help young people. I am a runner, I am a veteran, and I am pleased to be here. Thank you.
I'm Jim Lynch. I ran for Wagner High School, and I met Frank back in 1996 when I was training for the Olympics for my country, Holland, Netherlands. So I was able to get some knowledge from him, and it was a pleasure talking to him and running back from training to his place and just having some lemonade. So it was good.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryl Obie, married to Arnold Obie for 50 years. Mother of Celeste, Tanya Marie, and Karen Obie, all runners. Karen is right now serving in the United States Army. She's a Chief Warrant Officer 3, and right now she's in Wisconsin.
I'm the other half. I'm Arnold Obie. Okay. And I'm on the slow guy. They finally decided to take the guy middle of the pack, was running in the back of the pack. Said that's that old guy. Let's honor him. He's being so slow. Right. And Karen, we're very proud of our daughter Karen. 3 tours in Afghanistan as well, and she's stationed in Fort McCoy in Wisconsin. Okay, and for some reason, because I'm so slow, that I appreciate the fact that they're having a race named after me and honoring me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Zimmerman. I'm a member of Staten Island. I'm Steve Zimmerman, member of Track and Field Association, USATF, and I get my greatest joy at seeing young people, young children, and young people develop a love for track and field.
I'm Mona, and I'm the wife of Bernie Wright. I met him as a runner and in '94, and I'm still with him.
I'm Bernie Wright. I've been running since I was like 8 years old with the Harriers and then the Staten Island Track Club, and then it became Staten Island Athletic Club back in the 60s.
Hi, I'm Ben Teixeira. I'm president of the Clifton Roadrunners, also trustee on the U.S. Track and Field for New Jersey. It's a pleasure to be here.
My name is Tommy Hart. I'm an icon for Staten Island, and I'm an old Harrier runner. But the 2 original Harrier runners is Bill Welsh and Mike Brennan. And the other Harriers is my brother Jimmy, Bernie Wright, Joe Jones, and myself in the early 70s. And I am a veteran of Desert Storm and Vietnam. Thank you very much.
I'm Danforth Prince. I'm the innkeeper at Magnolia House, and I've had the great honor of welcoming Frank Shorter to stay with us. It's a great honor to have had him.
Hi, Mike Sinertia. I have the honor of Danforth invited me here tonight. I have the honor of meeting Frank, and I'm starting a company called Blood Ugly.
A sports motivation and franchising operation.
Hi, my name is Charlie Marchese, longtime Staten Island runner for over 40 years.
Paul Acosta, been a runner for, running for 60 years, never gets tired of it.
I'm Jimmy Hart. I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor. I'm also the president of the Richmond Rockets Runner Club. Well, actually a drinker club. But I am also a veteran.
I'm Mike Brennan. The important thing for you to know is I'm Olivia's husband. And if you want to get into the dinner, the roast on Monday night, forget it. Sprint champ, Curtis High School, 100-yard dash, 1959. University of Saigon, School of Hard Knocks, 1968, 1969. The only Woodstock I saw was the end of an M14 rifle. President of the Staten Island Athletic Club in the 70s, and Frank Shorter ruined my life.
Name is Bill Welch. I've been running here for a good number of years, and it's an honor to be with Frank Shorter, Olympic champ. Just want to say, I didn't know Abel Kiviat, and he was a great runner, and he was in the 1912 Olympics, and I can honestly say he never beat me in a race, And I'm proud of that. Thank you.
And I'm Frank Shorter, and I'm very, very happy to be back here in Staten Island. As I was saying before on television, that it reminds me so much of Middletown, my hometown, up in the Hudson River Valley, because we had the same kind of neighborhoods. We really did. As I'm driving around, the only thing I started to notice as we were driving around is in Middletown, the neighborhoods were small. And here, this is one huge neighborhood. It really is. The city, the houses look the same as they did, when I was growing up, except it just goes on and on and on. And so, I felt more comfortable here than I have in any other borough I've ever been in New York City. I feel more at home. And the other thing is, it's so rewarding for me to come back. I hadn't been here since 1995, to come back and realize that the spirit of running is still alive here. It really is. And my having so far been to 2 high schools last night, what struck me about that was that one was for at-risk students. And then the other was at Monsignor Farrell, and those kids aren't at risk in the same sense. But what I loved about it was it showed the inclusion in this community, that it really is a community that does care about everyone and can come together and do all that you're doing. So for me, it's so rewarding. And I think about when people all these years later, 45 years later, that we're all in a sense still doing this, that we never thought it would happen because we weren't planning for it to happen. It is something that just happened. And I think that's the beauty in it. It wasn't a marketing platform. It wasn't for people who were trying to build enterprises, and it wasn't about return on investment. It was about, community. And so that's what you have here. So I'm just honored and thrilled that you can bring me back and we can have this much fun. And the other part of it is, if you want to use me as an excuse for your party anytime, I'm your guy.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to introduce our 2 major hosts, Richie and Lois Nicotra. So why don't you come on over, say some words. Come on over.
I'm not a runner.
Well, you're doing good.
I'm just about a walker, but thank you. We're very proud to have you at our hotel. This guy I know for 1,000 years. He's got more energy. We got to see his daughter. His daughter really has more energy. Just wonderful people. So thank you for being here tonight and celebrating with us. And you always bring us such famous people here at our hotel. So we're so proud to host you and proud to host everyone here tonight. So thank you again. Bye.
Yep. If you notice around the table, we have some photographs. And I guess this story has been so misinterpreted, but has been reported. If you notice that there's a little marshmallow on your plates, surrounded by amphibious creatures, we tried very hard to find toy alligators, which harkens back to the story, which I believe I'm going to ask Mr. Welsh to tell again about when you went running with Frank, you and Mr. Tobin in Florida.
It's hard to remember because it was a few years ago. The routine with Frank and several other world-class runners, a man named Sam Bear, who was about a 356 miler and who loved to run fast. The routine was to run 10 miles in the morning just to greet the day, and then in the evening to have track workouts, and then to have a jog down afterwards. The most interesting part of all of that was the jog down. After everybody had run, I noticed Barry Brown and others had a bag of marshmallows. And the question came up in my mind, but I didn't say anything. But when we went out out of the stadium and along the swamp area, all of a sudden, we're on this little spread of land, and the guys are digging out the marshmallows and throwing them into the water. And what is that? The alligators come after the marshmallows. And I said, well, what happens? We learn to sprint. And that was the story. We learned to sprint because the alligators are coming after us. And that was quite a while ago. But thanks for the memory.
This is an alligator?
Yeah, no, yeah. I have to be totally honest. I don't really remember it quite that way. I like to think that we weren't like some of the people we saw who would actually take off their shoes, roll up their pants, and walk out into the water and try to feed the alligator and have the alligator take the marshmallow out of their hands. And so I like to think that what happened was we threw them into the water to watch what the alligators were going to do. I really do hope that distance runners would be more intelligent than that. No, they're not going to go out in the water with the alligator. But they were there, and you know, and the thing about them was they were ubiquitous. They were all over, and so, but you did have to be careful that you can get too used to them, because again, they were quick. But no, we never got that close. But it's a great story. Thanks.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, a great coach always exaggerates a little bit. I'm not sure all our morning runs were 10 miles, but other than that, we did. We trained very, very hard. We really did. But again, the other part of it was he came down there to visit, and they said, hey, can I go along and run with you? And we said, sure. Again, we accepted everyone, anyone who wanted to train. You know, it was a wonderful community, and we all worked together, and we worked very hard. And it was that aspect of training that was developing at that time, which was this enclave concept, where athletes who really had this commitment in this time of amateurism to get together and almost survive as a group. And the Florida Track Club was just one of those great groups. But anybody who wanted to come down there, and I'm going to tell them some other Sam Bear stories here, off the record and off camera. If you want to hear them, we'll tell them later. Give us some time.
At this point, I'd like to ask for your undivided attention. We have a very special presentation and a surprise tonight. Okay. Kenny Christensen is a Curtis High School captain, as is Mike Brennan in the room. Okay. It was also announced that Joe Jones is as well. In 1966-67, Joe created the modern Staten Island Athletic Club, which is celebrating its 50th year. So in honor of that, and Joe, his wife, and son, and everyone else will be very surprised, we're presenting you with a plaque. And let me show you the size of this thing. The 2017 Staten Island Community Honors presents to Joe Jones, captain of the Curtis High School track team, co-founder and first president of the modern-day Staten Island Athletic Club, in recognition of your contributions and service to the Staten Island running community for over 50 years. Your efforts still affect and are appreciated by Staten Island to this day. In gratitude, May 19, 2017. Congratulations, sir. Congratulations. Would you like to say anything?
I'd like to say that. Facing the camera. I'd like to say that I was involved with this running for about 10 years only, and that I really want to compliment all the people who stayed with running beyond me throughout the 80s, 90s, to the present, who really contributed a great deal more than myself to the running community here, and I don't want to, take anything away from that. And I appreciate this award because, back then we started it up. We wanted to bring Metropolitan Championships to Staten Island, and we did. And When we ran the Staten Island AC, we actually accomplished about 3 third-place Metropolitan Championships with the Staten Island AC. Prior to that, I ran for St. Anthony's Boys Club, and I think we were on one actual first-place Metropolitan Championship. And the idea was to bring the big stuff to Staten Island. And I also want to acknowledge the Staten Island Harriers, who had been around prior, who inspired everybody. We're talking about Vinnie Hutton, Frank Munster, and Bill Welsh, and everybody that was, my mentor back then, and inspired us to do what we did and to carry it on. And I want to reiterate, what happened after I left the sport in 1976 was really due to you guys that are sitting around here that participated and did and carried it forward. I appreciated Richie O'Razum and Jeff Benjamin and all the people that really did a tremendous amount, and they did more than I did. They did stuff like, bring it into Kiwanis and bring it into helping students get scholarships, and I saw that all happening, and I really want to acknowledge that besides my contribution. So thank you very much for this. I appreciate it.
It's with great honor that I introduce to you 1972 Olympic gold medalist, Mr. Frank Shorter. An honor meeting you, sir. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Staten Island. How are you?
I'm feeling great. It's fun to be back. It is. You see, I'm from a small town in the Hudson River Valley called Middletown. And what's always struck me about Staten Island when I've been here is it feels like a neighborhood. It's just, but the difference is where I came from, the houses look the same and it's the same environment, but they were small neighborhoods. And Staten Island is this huge neighborhood, and it's such a, I feel more at home here than I do in Manhattan. Maybe I should say that.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Really
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Did you become familiar with the running community here on Staten Island from what you've been told? And if so, what did you learn about it?
Well, a lot of it came through Jeff Benjamin, who I think is sort of the chronicler of running in the history of Staten Island, which makes sense because he's a history teacher. And so I think it's this wonderful blend of really helping to not only kind of promote the running community here, particularly in the high schools, but beyond. Everyone has a wonderful spirit. It's a sense of community, and everybody really does give back in their own way here. So it's been fun. And so far, last night I got here and spoke to 2 different high schools, an at-risk high school and then Monsignor Farrell High School, where kids aren't at risk. So it was 2 different high school groups, and yet everyone is included in the running community. That's the point I'm trying to make, is that everyone can be helped by this.
How often do people talk to you about your victory in Munich 45 years ago?
Well, I never would have thought that I'd be here. I'm almost 70 years old, and it would still be remembered the way it has been. I invariably have people, when I don't travel as much anymore, I'll go back to events like this, again, for more than one reason. I like to go somewhere now for more than one reason, and the idea now is to raise money and help support the running community here. But invariably people say, I watched you win that race in Munich in 1972, and in a way, literally and figuratively, they said, I went out the door and started running. And so I had no idea, because I was just trying to see how well I could do. And it wasn't that I had this idea, I'm going to win an Olympic gold medal and the rest of my life is going to be, is one of those college board words. It won't be a sinecure. It won't be a guarantee. So I never approached it that way after, but I had no idea. I had no idea it would continue to resonate. And so for me, it's the satisfaction. And I think over time, when I come to events like this, the 5K tomorrow, the LB 5K, I feel a combination of being a steward, and there's a certain trust in your role there. And so I always try to do that. But that's why I like the fact, again, here that they bring together the really historic aspect of the running community here, all the great old coaches, and they come together like they're here tonight, and then the young kids. And so in a way, it's very unusual, if not unique, here in Staten Island, where they've been able to bring kind of both ends of the continuum together.
Where were you the day or the night of the infamous massacre of the Israeli athletes? And where did you hear about it?
Well, I heard it because we were all, the distance runners were pretty much all rooming together in an apartment in the Olympic Village. There were like 6 of us. There was Steve Prefontaine and myself and Jack Batchelor. And I was rooming, we had a side room with a fellow named Dave Waddle, who won the gold medal in the 800 meters. So he was done early. That was one of the early events. So he had just been married, and we forged credentials and got all our significant others into the Olympic Village. So his new wife, Jam, was in our room. I was sleeping on the balcony of the room under an underhang on a mattress, and I heard the shots. I heard the shots across the courtyard. And so it was about 4 in the morning, and I woke up and I said to myself, that's not a door slamming. That's gunfire. And the next day, I'll never forget it. So I was outside, and usually I'd wake up early and I'd hear birds, and then I would hear noise build in the courtyard of the Olympic Village below me as people would come through. And that next morning I woke up and it was silent. And I looked over the edge, and it was just like the way I had learned to describe it was like the jungle when there's a predator around. There's no sound. And so we all knew something had happened, and we went inside, and Steve Prefontaine, my great friend who's now gone, his mother, even though he had a French name, his mother was German. And he learned German that was really his first language for a while. So he could translate all of what was going on the television. And so we learned over the course of that day and the next few days that, 11 Israeli athletes died.
The controversy surrounding the whole thing was that they decided to continue the Olympics as opposed to canceling the rest of the games. How did you feel about that?
At first, our reaction is we were, again, standing on that same balcony. There were like 8 or 10 of us who throughout the day would just sort of watch what was going on across the courtyard. We could actually see the terrorists on the balcony. And at first, our reaction was, well, people have died. We're going home. You know, it was nothing is worth more than human life. And we won't. It's sort of out of the initial reaction, the initial shock reaction, I think, is, out of respect. You'll do that. And then over the next 2 or 3 days, I think we went through all those phases that now the psychiatrists and psychologists tell you that you go through, the shock and the kind of depression, and then the bottoming out and coming out. And then you get to the very stubborn phase. It's almost resolve, and you say, no, we can't let this happen, because if we do, they win. And usually, I think this process takes months, maybe longer. We did it in days. because again, I think as athletes, in the way you think about things and the way you reframe problems and deal with them, it's just like, in a way, it's sort of like the attitude you take towards competition. And we came out of it very quickly. And coming back to the next day, they had a memorial service at the Olympic Stadium, and it was announced that the games were going to continue. And walking back to the Olympic Village from the stadium, because it was actually very close to the stadium, I turned to Kenny Moore, who's one of my friends. We were going to run the marathon together. And I said, Kenny, the only other place that the terrorists can do anything here is out on the marathon course, because the security is going to be, incredible everywhere else. And I said, I'm not going to think about it, because if I do, they win. And I ran the entire race in 1972 and never once thought about it. Never. Yeah.
To wrap up, how do you feel about today's crop of American runners? And also, do you still run today?
Oh yeah, I just got done running. Nice. So it's always been my stress relief, however you want to describe it. And it's always been my reward for getting everything else in the day done. So I'm one of those not early morning runners. Once everything's done, my reward is to go out and run and just sort of decompress. And so I've always done that. And so naturally I do. I probably run 5 days a week, and then I ride a spin bike, and I do elliptical, and I do weights, and all those things to try to, at least at this point in my life, not look as old as I am. That's my main goal. And my other goal is to simply slow down as slowly as possible. And that's kind of where I am now. But no, I'm very active every day.
Frank, congratulations on such a wonderful career. Good luck to you, and may God always be with you.
Godspeed to you, too.
Always a pleasure to speak with a fellow Curtis High School alumnus, Mr. Joseph Jones. Very nice meeting you. Congratulations on your award. How are you?
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to receive it today and to be acknowledged for my 10 years involvement from 66 approximately to 1976. And what we did back then was we had a group of about 60 runners, and a lot of them were high school runners who participated during the summer, and we competed against major clubs in the area. And during my tenure, we accomplished about 3 third-place Metropolitan Championships, and actually defeated Milrose AA in an 8.5-mile race up in Connecticut, and just had a great time. I mean, running was just a sport that people enjoyed, and we went into different competitions, either singularly or as a team, and loved it. And bringing some championship races to Staten Island was one of my major intentions, so that Staten Island would become more of a central hub of the overall running community, because prior to that, the Staten Island Harriers, which was an important event, every Saturday they would run a handicap race, and people would get involved with that, and it inspired people to run. But the Harriers team had gotten a little old, let's say, and maybe there weren't that many competing for it, and I decided to start something new and to bring a little better life into it, and that's what we did. And we had a great deal of fun. We weren't as involved as they are today, where they've done some wonderful things with the community, and they've hooked up with Kiwanis clubs, and they've done scholarships for young people, and I admire that a great deal, and I think they've done a great service to Staten Island, and took it further than I did, but as I say, that's what I did, and we had a lot of fun doing it, and we had races out of the Staten Island Y. It was kind of general. The entry fees were much lower. We didn't give out T-shirts. We did have medals and trophies, and people like Frank Munster, who is a member, one of the members of the leaders of the Staten Island Harriers, would donate a few $100s back then for us, and that was astounding, because we were just not, 21-year-old kids, and to get people like in their 60s to donate hundreds of dollars so that we could put on a race was just very appreciative. There was, besides Vinnie Hutton and Joe Zandrino, was a Staten Island guy that was involved with baseball. He also was very encouraging to us. And a lot of the old timers are either passed away or not doing so well, I understand today, but and moved out of state, which happens. And so when I got arrhythmia, I got out of the sport. When I got arrhythmia in 1983, when my son was born, I developed a serious arrhythmia. So I got out of the sport, and I had a couple of attacks after that. I just really got more focused on work, taking care of our house, paying the bills, and got away from the sport. And from the sidelines, liked and enjoyed seeing other people carry it forward, like Richie O'Raisin was the first president that took over after me. And then came Jeff Benjamin, and then Mary O'Raisin, the wife of Richie O'Raisin, his brother. And then now it's the Staten Island State is being run by a fellow named Mark Voigt, and they are doing great things with it too. They're doing all kinds of things. They get involved with the Spartan runs, and they go out and they do the polar bear swims and do different things to raise funds, and they do a lot of good work. And that's the legacy, I guess, that I started, and I took over that name because I thought that Staten Island needed a club named Staten Island AC. It was a club that was started way back in 1872, approximately, or 1874, and it was defunct for a number of years, quite a number of years. And I started it when it was called the Amateur Athletic Union, and then it changed hands and it has other new names since then. And we got it started, and that's pretty much the story. Yeah.
Do you still keep up with running today on television? Are you still a fan of the sport?
I am a fan of the sport. Yeah. I mean, myself, I was a Staten Island champion in the mile, and I was a Staten Island champion in the cross country, setting island records as well when I did that, and I was a good runner. I was not a great runner like some that are here tonight, like Frank Shorter. My best time was 65:47 for 12-mile run, which is approximately a little less than 5.5 minutes a mile for 12 miles. It's a decent time, but again, just a good runner, not a great runner. But as it was, I enjoyed every minute of it because that was our sport, and you just go out and you do your best. And that's what life is all about, doing your best. And I encourage all young people who get involved in sports or any other activities in their life to just try to do their best, because that's what makes you a success, by trying your hardest, and that's what happens.
How do you feel about today's group of American long-distance runners?
Well, it's becoming phenomenally much better. I mean, both in the female and the male categories, we have upcoming people who are just going to be right up there and become Olympic champions like Frank was. There's no question about it. I mean, there's a great resurgence of quality long-distance runners, what I see out there. I'm actually on Facebook with a young runner called Mary Kane, and she lives in New York, I think somewhere up in in New York State, but she's an up-and-coming miler, a young girl, maybe she's about 18 now, is running for a college out in Oregon or something. And this is the future. And we have some really talented young people coming out for the sport, and going to see some people challenging the great African runners in the future. I mean, the African runners have some advantage because some of them live in high altitudes, they have better diets, and they have good coaches. But so do we now. And there's going to be a resurgence in American long-distance running even now. And I expect to see some great things from, especially the women. And we have some great runners too. I mean, what's the fellow's name that was in the 10,000 meters?
There's one British runner who's become a real sensation, which is Mo Farah.
Mo Farah, yes, he is fabulous. And he represented the United States and England as well, at different phases.
Only England.
Only England, but he lives and trains in the United States, I understand, right? Yeah. He's a fabulous runner. I saw him win that race from behind. Just a phenomenal runner. Fantastic.
What makes a really good long-distance runner? What should they have?
Well, what they need is this is a good question. I'm glad you're asking that. Besides perseverance and training, I think a critical thing is to believe that you can be much better than you believe you can be. There's this sense that I can be so good, but there needs to be a really deep soul searching that you didn't put enough effort in, and you could put much more effort in, and you really have to put that effort in, because a lot of times, even when I was running, I realized that I could have pushed myself harder. I could have trained harder. But we have things that are going on. You're studying as a student, and you have, your family and different things that you get involved with. And some people have greater support systems, as we know, and having that support system is critical too. Having a father or mother that's going to be behind you and encourage you, and that's critical too. Not everybody is fortunate as the next person in terms of what they have going for them, as you know. And then there's people who don't have a lot going for them, and they still rise. They still go above, and they still, get somewhere. And that's perseverance. Perseverance is the goal. You have to keep at it and keep at it and believe in yourself. That's very good.
Joseph, congratulations, and thank you for all you have done for running here on Staten Island. Continued success and best of health, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The awards presentations continue as right now we're joined by Dr. Craig Campbell, who's a proud member of the Kiwanis Club. It's very nice to meet you, sir. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Tell me about your connections to Staten Island running.
I was a swimmer, actually. I went to Monsignor Farrell High School, and I was a varsity swimmer for 4 years. We won the city championship my freshman year, my senior year. We beat Xavier. And I swam competitively for about 12 years. Not a runner at all, but I'm very dear friends with Judge Michael Brennan, who is a renowned Staten Island runner. And he got me to join the Kiwanis. And I was born and raised in West Brighton, fourth generation Staten Islander. So this is the fourth year they've done this, where there's a race in honor of a runner and the roast in honor of some other supposed dignitary. And I was the designated dignitary this year, so to speak.
What's it like knowing that you're going to be the subject of a roast that's going to be coming up pretty soon?
It's very embarrassing. It's very awe-inspiring, actually. I'm very humbled by it. I just do my job, try to take care of my patients, try to take care of the community, just try to be a good guy. And to have the multitude of people, there's going to be like 453 people at the roast. It's pretty intimidating, actually, for lack of a better word.
How'd you get involved with the Kiwanis Club?
Judge Brennan. My dear friend for many, many years. We've traveled together for years. We've been friends for over 20 years, and he got me to join about 6 or 7 years ago.
For those who may not be familiar with the organization, what is the Kiwanis Club?
There's several factions of the Kiwanis. We're called the Brighton Kiwanis. We meet in Jody's Club Forest. 372 Forest Avenue, every Wednesday evening in the back room. We have a meeting, and we conduct business, and we do a lot of good things. We do food drives for food pantries. We sponsor races. We have a great foundation, and we have a great endowment where we have insurance. So most of the races that go on Staten Island, the Pepper Martin, or now the Ariel Newman race, the Memorial Day race, the Lou Marley race, the Kiwanis Foundation underwrites that in terms of the insurance policy. So that's a big help. And we just do a lot of good. And the proceeds from this roast are going to go to send some kids to Camp Kiwanis, some underprivileged children that don't have a lot of money, for them to experience going away to camp for the summer.
How does it feel giving back to the community for so many years?
It's wonderful. I have a philosophy: you pay it forward. Whenever I've done something from my heart, it's come back 4 or 5 or 6-fold, and it's just automatic knee-jerk reflex for me to do that. And I think West Brighton, I think Staten Island, the North Shore of Staten Island, is the most magical community in the world, and I never want to leave it.
Well, sir, congratulations on all of your efforts. thank you so much for your time. Continued success and good luck to you, sir.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
What a pleasure it is to speak to Arnold Obie, a proud New York City school principal who also has a connection to the legendary New York City Marathon, and he was kind enough to take time out to speak to us right now. Very nice to meet you, sir. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here tonight with Frank Shorter and running part of the members of the running community.
What's it like being in the same dining room with an Olympic legend?
It's really an honor. If you remember, he won the marathon in 1972 in Munich, and also that was the same time that was a very difficult time in the international community with what went on with the Palestinians and the Israelis getting blown up at that time. It's a very difficult time, but he started the running boom in the States by him winning the marathon, and people got involved in running, really got involved in running, and it really took a boom, took off at that time.
How did he inspire you to be a runner?
Okay, well, I came along a little later, but I went to Wagner College, and I was a sprinter at that time. So I did 100. In those days, the 220, the 440 relay, and the triple jump and long jump. So any kind of distance running was way beyond my scope. But later on in life, I decided I wanted to get in shape and started running, taking up distance running, and started running the road races locally in Staten Island. And then when I decided in 1980, I said, let me try the New York City Marathon. And I've been running it ever since.
What's the best place that you have finished in a marathon?
My best time is 3 hours, 31 minutes. And that was the time. Now everything has chips. And so in those days, it took you 10 to 15 minutes to get to the start. So, and that was a gun time. So when it started, the cannon started, the clock started. So if you're in the back, it took you X number of minutes to get to the start. So I was 10 to 15 minutes. So my time was 3:31. But in today, I probably would have ran 10, 15 minutes faster.
Here's some food for thought. Which is tougher, running a marathon or being the principal of a school?
Okay, well fortunately, I'm retired now. But I enjoyed the interaction with the children and the staff. I really enjoyed that. So I think running the marathon is tougher in a sense, but I enjoyed working in the school system. It's really, I really enriched me, and I think I hopefully enriched the children and the parents and the community as well.
The marathon here has developed such a reputation for so long, produced so many great runners, and attracted so many great runners from around the world. What is it like for you competing with so many runners from all across the globe?
Well, it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because when I first started in 1980, it was about 14,000 runners. And we all started, as I mentioned earlier, we started at the same time. Now, it's over 50,000 runners, and they have 4 waves. And so what happens, you run through the communities, and there's so many people out there in all the communities cheering you and inspiring you to go on and push you through. You get to Central Park, you have 3 more miles to go, and it's really a wonderful thing that goes on in New York City. The energy in this whole city on that day is a wonderful feeling, and it's been inspiring because some people have been spectators, said, I can do the marathon, and they got involved in running it as well.
You had mentioned that you had started out competing in the 100-meter dash. Is there a different type of preparation in between the two disciplines, or are the preparations the same?
No, there's a big difference. I mean, 100 yards, it's a sprint as well. And so you have to train and pace yourself to run the marathon, a 5-mile race, or especially the marathon. You really have to pace yourself and take it easy. What happens to me that I enjoy is that the sprinting background that I have helps me towards the finish, even though my times are slowing down. But and getting to that finish line, I even tell the course, as long as you run the race, I tell the people I meet, because you meet people from all over the world, I said, look, the best part of the race is when you get to Central Park. You finish, the people are there, it's alive. And also when you get to the Bronx, because the Bronx is mile 20, and I tell everybody it's a 10K, so you have 6.2 miles. I said we all ran 6.2. It may be the toughest 10K you ran in your life, but you finished that.
Is there a hope that you have for yourself in future endeavors? And if so, what would it be?
As far as pertaining to running, or well, no, just stay healthy. And along the line of my age, I had we all had health issues, and just to keep going. That's what I look forward to. And I said, as far as the marathon, just show me the finish line. I know I'm not going to beat the Kenyans, so I conceded that years ago.
Arnold, what a pleasure it was speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time. Continued success and good luck to you.
Thank you. It was great meeting you. Thank you again. I really appreciate it. And there's room for next. It's too late this year, but next year there's room for everybody else to get involved in the marathon. Okay.
We have a very intriguing Olympic story to tell, and here to help us tell that story is Wayne Baker, and he represents the New Jersey Shore Athletic Club, correct?
Correct.
First of all, thank you so much for joining us. How are you, sir?
Doing well, thank you.
Now, you are holding a rather prized medal in both of your hands right now. That's the original gold medal from the 1908 Olympic Games, correct?
That's correct. And that was the Olympic marathon that wound up establishing the distance of the marathon at 26.2 miles. There was a very exciting story that happened there. An Italian named Durando Pietri entered the stadium first. He turned the wrong way. He wound up collapsing 5 times. He was eventually aided up to try to have someone win other than an American. Pietri wound up disqualified as a result of that, and Johnny Hayes, the American who finished about a minute behind him, wound up receiving the gold medal.
How has the Olympic gold medal evolved from the very first modern games in 1896 until now, aside from the obvious, which is the shape of the medal and also the amount of weight that it has?
Well, the medals initially, there were not Olympic medals as such. One of the other things that Shore AC holds is Johnny Hayes' diploma. It's a large paper certificate done in a very classical style, and those were originally sort of the keepsakes for the athletes. As time went by, they started to introduce medals, and I believe that it was I think it was 1904 in St. Louis where they first had medals playing a significant role, and I think that was where the gold, silver, and bronze representing first, second, and third came into play. I'm not totally certain on the details there, but this medal was, certainly one of the earlier ones. It was made in 18-karat gold, roughly, as you can see, the size of a $50, give or take. It was worn for many years by Doris Hale, who was a school teacher, and Johnny Hayes' daughter, and she wore it on a charm bracelet. And the other charms, banging against it for so many years, wound up wearing down the medal. So while it says on it, Olympic Games, London 1908, unless you look very closely at it, it's virtually illegible.
How do you feel the sport of long-distance running has evolved?
Well, one of the things that had happened at that time was that following the race, there were promoters who offered a lot of money to Pietri and Hayes, and several other runners were also involved, Tom Longboat from Canada being probably the next best known among them. And they were You know, they wound up running professional races first at Madison Square Garden, and you have to keep in mind they're running a marathon on a 1/10 of a mile track in what was the second Madison Square Garden. So it was the one at Madison Square that was made famous in the movie Ragtime. So basically flat dirt floor, 10 laps to the mile, 262 laps, match race through a haze of cigarette smoke. And generally speaking, what happened was the first of these follow-up races happened on Thanksgiving Eve of 1908 with Pietri and Hayes running together in a match race. What happened was basically Hayes led the whole way. Pietri kicked in past him, won the race. Hayes, in fact, never beat Pietri again, in the races. These races continued pretty much up until World War I in various forms. They traveled to South America, they traveled to Europe, not always Hayes, not always Pietri. There was an Albert Corey who was, I believe, out of St. Louis who was also involved. I know there was a race out in San Francisco. So these things have been pretty well documented. I had the honor and opportunity to help out with a couple of books. I'm suddenly forgetting the name of the English author. But there was a book titled The Marathon Makers, which has since been retitled and reissued by a London author, and also later on a book by David Davis called Showdown at Shepherd's Bush. Both of these books document the story very, very well, and tell the story in great depth. But the follow-up races kind of created a perception that the marathon should be the Olympic distance from this race, which was 26.2 miles. That was done so that the race could begin at Windsor Castle and finish in front of the Royal Reviewing Stand in the White City Stadium. So prior to that, marathons had been on the order of 40 kilometers or 25 miles, and that extra mile and a quarter was probably the difference in why Pietri did not win. But, an interesting story. Back in the early 70s, and I'm trying to remember who it's attributed to, it may in fact have been Frank Shorter. Don Cardong is the other one who sticks in my head. Was famous for having, and in fact I think it was Shorter at the Pan Am Games in maybe 1970, and it was just brutal conditions. And the question was jokingly asked, why couldn't Pheidippides have died at mile 20? So there's a lot of history tied into this.
Sir, excellent job. Thank you so much for your time. Continued success and good luck with the athletic club.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just want to give a special word of thanks to everyone that was involved in tonight's festivities. Frank Shorter himself. We also want to say thanks to our dear friend Jeff Benjamin and everyone from the Staten Island long-distance running community for their help and hospitality in making this night happen. We also want to give a special word of thanks to everyone involved here at the Hilton Garden Inn for their kind generosity for tonight's event. So for everyone here, for Eric, who's watching the show on television, I'm Jamie. We hope to see you next week. Good night, everyone.